Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Even better than that. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the June 17th, 2008 meeting of the Glendale City Council. Mr. City Clerk, can we hear the roll?
Council members Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Yusefian.
Here.
Mayor Draymond.
Here. Could we hear the report, please?
Well, if you'd like to start.
Actually, let's start with the flag salute. And who is up this week?
Is Councilmember Najarian.
Councilmember Najarian, if you would.
Thank you. Everyone, please rise. Place your hand over your heart. Repeat after me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation. Charles Wadsworth once said that by the time a man realizes that maybe his father was right, he usually has a son who thinks he's wrong. Last Sunday, many around the city and around our nation honored, thanked, or remembered their fathers and grandfathers for their sacrifices, love, and compassion. I'd like us tonight to pray for those fathers who did not spend their Father's Day with their wives and children, but who continue to remain in the service of our nation's armed forces. Let's keep these families in our minds who have been torn apart by the ongoing conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq, and pray for their safe and swift return. We pray for their safety and pray that their children remain safe and secure, and pray that this council does all within its means to ensure this. Amen.
Now, Mr. City Clerk, if we could have your report.
Certainly. The agenda for the June 17, 2008 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, June 12, 2008 on the bulletin board outside City Hall, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The first item, please.
3 on the agenda is presentation and appointments, and at 3A is agenda preview for the meeting of June 24, 2008.
Thank you. And Mr. McFall, are you going to lead us through the agenda preview?
I will do that. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. June 24th next year, we will begin with the Housing Authority at 2:30, where the Acting Director of Finance will be presenting the adoption of the 2008-9 Housing Authority budget. The same on the Glendale Redevelopment Agency, where there will be a presentation and adoption consideration of the 2008-9 Glendale Redevelopment Agency budget. On the Glendale City Council agenda, this is by recent practice, the Tuesday of the month where the presentations and appointments will be made, so there are a number of them that are scheduled for next week. Under action items, the Acting Director of Finance will be presenting a presentation discussion of the proposed landscape maintenance district for North San Fernando Road. The Director of Public Works will be submitting a report regarding the removal of the left turn prohibitions at the private driveway at 3612 Linda Vista Road. The Acting Director of Finance will be submitting a number of reports associated with the budget, the first one being that the adoption of the city's 2008-9 appropriation limit. Secondly, the Acting Director of Finance will be presenting the annual Glendale Water and Power transfer amount, and then the adoption of the City of Glendale as a whole 2008-9 budget. The Director of Public Works will be submitting a report on seismic retrofit project, a motion to increase the contingency amount, and then lastly, the Director of Public Works will be conducting or presenting a hearing on the revision of refuse collection fees.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to 3A, B, C, and D. Start with 3B.
At 3B is nomination assignment for the Historic Preservation Commission. This is you, Mr. Dreeman. At 3C is nomination assignment for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Service Commission. This is Councilmember Weaver. And at 3D is nomination assignment for the Planning Commission, Councilmember Yusefian.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Weaver.
So would you put on the agenda next week the reappointment of Dottie Sharkey? I've already spoken to her.
For the Historic
Parks.
For the Parks and Rec.
Oh, Parks and Rec. Okay. Do we have that? Okay. Let's go on to the next item, please.
Next item is City Council or staff comments.
Mr. Yusefian.
Mayor, I would humbly ask that tonight we adjourn in the memory of Lucy Yarrick. Ms. Yarrick, Bernal Yarrick, passed away last weekend. So I would like to read a little bit about Ms. Yarrick. Lucy was deeply devoted to our community and was instrumental in the creation of the Glendale Beautification Advisory Committee in the 1960s. Among other accomplishments, the Glendale Beautification Committee was responsible for installing the original landscaping around San Fernando, which is now known as the Metrolink right-of-way. If you remember all those I don't know what they call it. Oleanders. She was partly responsible. I think she worked with Glendale Beautiful to do all that. She also was instrumental in the first program to place public waste receptacles to collect litter in the downtown, and the construction of the monument sign in the Glen Oaks median, welcoming people in Glendale from Burbank. Lucy was a supporter of the Glendale Symphony and involved in the many community organizations over the many years of her life. Lucy's first husband, which there's a reason why I'm reading this section. Lucy's first husband was Al Palfaro, one of the original Disney cartoonists. Al created the cartoon character Donald Duck and his duck family. It was always thought, but Al would never admit, that Lucy was the inspiration for Grandma Duck. Lucy and her second husband, Bernell Yarrick, were active in community affairs, and both were devoted to gardening and environmental education before it became so chic these days. Lucy was the city's first recipient of the Lifetime Beautification Award presented by the city's Clean and Beautiful Committee, recognizing her love for the city. For people who would like to attend her funeral, it will be held on Friday, June 20th at 12 noon at Glendale Presbyterian Church, Howard and Louise. That's it. Also, Gladys wanted me to let you know that Lucy has been a member of Glendale Beautiful since 1978. That's a commitment. On a lighter note, Mr. Mayor, I would like to also, I don't do this very often, but when I am corrected, I do apologize. Last week, I did make some comments, and actually I looked at Mr. Najarian as I made that. The issue about the soundproofing on the neighborhood about where the flyover is going to be, I mixed up the airport soundproofing, which is about $50,000 with unit, with what we did. I quickly got an email from Mrs. Taylor that said there were actually 23 homes, and the amount was $10,000 apiece. Now, not 50,000. So I just wanted to clarify that record and apologize for giving you the wrong impression. The third item, Mr. Mayor, I would like to put on the agenda, as some of the other cities are doing, a policy to ban plastic shopping bags. Pasadena's considering, Santa Monica has already implemented it. As I went to League of California Cities, there was a picture of Santa Monica Bay, and somewhere on the corner there's almost this big huge island. We didn't know what that was. It was nothing but a bunch of shopping bags, and they don't.
I'm vacationing there, actually.
They're vacationing there.
Bag
yes,
Island, yes.
Yes. All the fish just kind of run around it. So I wouldn't have said this a few years ago because there was not an alternative option. Currently, there's an alternative option. They put some kind of a material in there. I think it's driven from corn, which causes it to biodegrade. So I would like to put that on the agenda so we could discuss it. Also have staff look into it. Pasadena is considering doing the same thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Did we get a note of that about okay. Thank you so much. Anyone else with Mr. Quintero?
I also knew Lucy, and I was very sad that she passed on. She was a wonderful, wonderful person, wonderful lady, and sad to see her go. I wanted to say a few words about the Bob Hope Airport, the economic impact report that we received, the commissioners received, and it's also available to the public. Basically, some of the highlights are the total economic impact of Bob Hope Airport in Southern California in 2006 was approximately $3.9 billion. And the direct impacts in Burbank, Glendale, and the surrounding area, $628 million in output, 2,400 full-time equivalent jobs at Bob Hope Airport, and the earnings are $127.4 million for those 2,400 jobs. Then the indirect impact, so in other words, the lodging, food, beverages, shopping, ground transportation, $1.1 billion in output with 15,800 full-time equivalent jobs, and the earnings on those jobs are approximately $360 million. Then they also have what they call induced impacts, but it's obvious it is a tremendous economic engine for the region. And then the other issue is that we continue to work on the 161 study, which is the application to the FAA, the Federal Aviation Authority Administration, for a curfew, a mandatory curfew from 10 to 7, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Najarian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to invite everyone in the community to a very important meeting that's going to be held this Saturday, June 21st, at 9 a.m., 9 to 12, at the Pacific Community Center at 501 South Pacific Avenue. And the topic of this important meeting is the swimming pool that we've been talking about and making some progress toward. We'd like to hear your thoughts on what sort of amenities, what sort of size, what sort of features are important to you. We're going to have some experts, some consultants, as well as our project manager there with George Chapchin. I think the mayor is going to be there, and his well, I won't go there.
Water wings.
His water wings. And the point is just to get your input. We haven't had a pool for a long time. We may not get another one for an equally long period of time, so we'd like to do this one right, of course, within our means, within our budget. So please come down. It is this Saturday, 9 a.m. at the Pacific Community Center, 501 South Pacific Avenue, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Najarian. I have one quick, Mr. Weaver, did you have any announcements? I have one quick announcement that it's just that the election of Councilmember Frank Quintero as our SCAG District Number 42 Regional Council Representative. So congratulations to you, Mr. Quintero, and thank you for serving. All righty. Mr. City Clerk, can we go to... Yes, sir.
I would like to also ask the staff, when is the timing for bringing back the Arts and Culture Commission's issues back to us? Yet to appoint another person. It was supposed to come back for discussion. Thank you.
Let us go on to the next item, please.
Next item is consent items, including the minutes.
No, we skipped over number 4.
No, we are.
Oh, we just did that. Of course, we just did that, yes. Let me announce, actually, while we're stopped, let me announce that I'm going to make a small change in the schedule, in the agenda right now. What I'd like to do is recess the council meeting and move directly to the joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council, the Glendale Redevelopment Agency, and the Glendale Housing Authority. I suspect many of you are here for that meeting, and that seems to be the star attraction tonight. So unless there is an objection from my colleagues, I would like to recess the Glendale City Council meeting and move to our...
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
It's a good idea, but I'm just wondering if there might be some, I think we're expecting quite a few speakers on the smoking, if there might be some people here on the consent calendar that can be dispatched with rather quickly.
It looks to me like, though, there is going to be some discussion on a number of items on the consent calendar, which is why Well, let's see. Let's just see. Let's see if we have any requests to pull any. Do I have any requests from my council, from my colleagues in the council to pull any of the consent items?
Just doing a quick poll. We have not read that item into the agenda. If you just want a quick poll.
Yeah,
to
let's
assess whether
do
we're gonna-
that. Let's do that. Let's start with that. Mr. Kasakian, if you would read the item.
Okay, well, 5 is consent items, including minutes following a routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay. Nothing? Okay, I don't have any cards asking that we pull any items, so let us go ahead and call the roll.
Council members Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Stefan,
Aye.
Mayor Draymond.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. Let us now, if there are no other comments, let's recess the council meeting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and for those of you who just tuned in because the Laker game was too painful to watch,
Rethink your decision.
yes, rethink your decision. We have been in a recess from the city council meeting because we have been in a special joint meeting of the Glendale City Council, Glendale Redevelopment Agency, and Glendale Housing Authority on a smoking ordinance issue. I would like to reconvene the meeting of the Glendale City Council meeting. Mr. City Clerk, if I am not mistaken, we left off where oral communications would
Yes.
normally be. Prior to doing that, if I may turn to my colleague, Mr. Weaver, who may have an announcement on the score.
I don't know what the final score is, but just
It's
ask.
actually all over, but the shouting, it was, last I saw was 123 to 85, Boston over.
286.
2 minutes or 2:20 left.
Better luck next
123 to 86 with 220.
All right.
Play next year, they'll have Bynum back.
Let's see if we all have better luck.
Yes.
All right. We have, this is for which? Okay. We have shifted the agenda around a bit to accommodate the large house full of speakers. So we'll go back to oral communications now, and we'll start with announcements, which are the 3-minute items. We normally allow 5 minutes for oral communication. These are speakers who are voluntarily willing to limit their time to 3 minutes to make an announcement of a public event or activity. Our first card is Larry Cohen, if he is here. Okay. Okay, I don't see him now. We'll see. Talin, help me. Is Talin here with the Armenian Bone Marrow Donor Registry?
They had to leave as well. They had a meeting that started at 8.
Would you like to?
Well, the announcement is that the Armenian Bone Marrow Donor Registry will be having their walkathon this weekend. It'll be actually on Saturday, and registration begins, I believe, at 7:30 a.m., if I'm not mistaken. So it's at Griffith Park, and if there is anyone that requires more information, I guess they could call my office, 818-548-4000.
And the time again is at?
Starts early in the morning. It starts, registration begins before 8 a.m. on Saturday.
Okay. Thank you. Leon Mayer. Followed by Helen McDonough.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Leon Mayer. I missed the Laker game, and I have no regrets, especially with the pain it would have been in watching that game. In any event, I'm here on behalf of the Glendale Library and the Friends of the Library, and we have an event coming up on June 26th, an event that if you can make it, you shouldn't miss it. It's an event featuring Brian Jenkins from the RAND Corporation. Brian Jenkins is one of the world's foremost authorities on the question of terrorism and counterterrorism. And our event is co-hosted or co-sponsored by the RAND Corporation. The title of the book that Brian Jenkins has written is Unconquerable Nation, Knowing Our Enemy and strengthening ourselves. And this book by this 40-year expert on terrorism and counterterrorism is a concise and compelling study as to what the status is on the battle, the conflict with terrorism as it exists today, and what he thinks can be done to improve our situation and eventually defeat terrorism as a living enemy, so to speak. Brian Jenkins was himself a combat veteran with the Army Special Forces. He got medals for combat valor in the Dominican Republic and in Vietnam. And since that time, he's been all over the world advising various groups, including our government groups, concerning the subject of terror and counterterrorism. That's going to be June 26th at 7 o'clock at the library. Everybody's invited. Parking is free. There's no fee charged for coming there to listen to him, perhaps buying his books, getting him to autograph a book for a friend or for yourself or for a gift at Christmas time. Now, I have programs for July, but I'm not going to take the time tonight to talk about our July programs. If the news press gives us the publicity we think we will get for Brian Jenkins in the next several days, there will be no need for me to come here next Tuesday. If they don't, I might just come back Tuesday and talk more about Brian Jenkins. I want to take this time out to thank certain of the people who have helped us on the promotion. Larry Zarian on the Armenian Channel 26, I think it's now 72 or whatever, has helped us, and we appreciate all the help we get from everybody else. I have flyers here, and I have our newsletters, so raise your hand as you leave as I leave, and I'll give you the flyers. You can always get them at the library. Thanks again, and I'd like to say this was a great event for me to listen to all the members of the public and to the members of the council discuss the important event that you discussed tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Draymond, City Council members, and City staff. I'll be brief. The first in the summer film series at the Alex is tomorrow night, Wednesday, June 18th, at 7:30. We will be showing The Untouchables. This film will benefit the Glendale Police Foundation, COPS unit, and we will be raising funds for segways and bicycles. And with the way things are going, we may need them for enforcement. VIP tickets are $25. This includes food and wine, beer, at the Alex from 6 to 7:15, with the film beginning at 7:30. General admission tickets are $10. You can purchase tickets online at alextheater.org or tomorrow at Massage Envy Glendale. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope that you will all come out tomorrow night, since there's no Laker game. Thank goodness.
Thank you, Ms. McDonough. Okay, that brings us to the end of our speakers on public events and announcements. Mr. City Clerk, let's go to the item 7, the adoption of ordinances.
Mr. Mayor and Council, at adoption of ordinances. Adoption of ordinances at 7A, we have an urgency ordinance for supplementary benefits and compensation of certain officers and employees of the City of Glendale to supplement the salary ordinance of said city and amending the Glendale Municipal Code relating to compensation and fringe benefits under certain memoranda of understanding, GPOA. This was offered on June 10th, 2008 by Councilmember Weaver. In fact, the remaining, all the urgency ordinances will have been offered by Councilmember Weaver. At 7B, we have urgency ordinance providing supplementary benefits and compensation of certain officers and employees of the City of Glendale to supplement the ordinance of said city and amending Glendale Municipal Code relating to compensation and fringe benefits under certain memoranda of understanding, GCEA. At 7C, we have urgency ordinance providing for supplementary benefits and compensation of certain officers and employees of City of Glendale and supplement to the salary ordinance of said city and amending the Glendale Municipal Code relating to compensation and fringe benefits under certain memoranda of understanding, GFFA. At D is urgency ordinance providing for supplementary benefits and compensation of certain officers and employees of the City of Glendale to supplement the salary ordinance of said city and amending Glendale Municipal Code relating to compensation and fringe benefits under certain memoranda of understanding, GMA. At E is urgency ordinance providing for supplementary benefits and compensation of certain officers and employees of the City of Glendale to supplement the salary ordinance of said city and amending Glendale Municipal Code relating to compensation and fringe benefits under certain memoranda of understanding, executives. And at F is urgency ordinance providing for supplementary benefits and compensation of certain officers and employees of the City of Glendale to supplement the salary ordinance of said city and amending the Glendale Municipal Code relating to compensation and fringe benefits under certain memoranda of understanding, council. And I can take a pause there, or I could continue. Should I just go through
Why don't you continue, and we'll just get it over with.
Understand. At G is ordinance providing for certain officers, subordinate officers, assistants, deputies, clerks, and employees of the City of Glendale and for their compensation. This is GPOA. That's Glendale Police Officers Association. At H is ordinance providing for certain officers, subordinate officers, assistants, deputies, clerks, and employees of the City of Glendale and for their compensation. GFFA, Glendale Firefighters Association. At I is the ordinance providing for certain officers, subordinate officers, assistants, deputies, clerks, and employees of the City of Glendale and for their compensation, GCEA, that's Glendale City Employees Association. At J is ordinance providing for certain officers, subordinate officers, assistant deputies, clerks, and employees of the City of Glendale and for their compensation, GMA and GMA exempt, that's Glendale Management Association.
Mr. Kasakian, thank you. City clerks all around the nation will be singing your praises because of your ability to get through all of that. I thank you. Yes, Mr. Quintero.
I would like to vote separately. Are we going to vote separately?
You take them separately.
Okay. Let me mention that we have speaker cards, and I will need some clarification on one of them, which is card from Barry Allen, just says 7. I don't know whether you wish to speak on 7A, B, C, D, E, F, G, et cetera, which?
You have them all on the record now, so it becomes somewhat moot.
Well, then let me turn to you,
7
Mr.
times, or-
City Attorney. We
You
have that as,
got one chance.
excuse me, we have one card from Mr. Allen. We have cards A through J from Mr. Milano. We have to go one way or the other. We can't,
Can allow each, it's your call, Mr. Mayor, you can allow each speaker 3 minutes total.
okay. Well, rather than tell Mr. Milano he can have 10 seconds for each of A through J, we'll just, all right. Let's go to the public on this. Mr. Allen, let's start with you. And since, as a result, there are only 2 of you speaking, let's give them 5 minutes. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, of course, the public. I'm Barry Allen with Vanguardians, and I certainly won't be taking 5 minutes, so you can give the balance of my time to Mr. Milano.
Except that we don't do that. So.
But, as you're going to be voting on each issue separately, you may be able to speak to each issue separately. But I have the feeling that, from what I've read in the paper, that this council is going to pass these urgency ordinances probably in total for about $6.5 million. And I think it's something that we really have to take a serious look at. Should we show that we're against that by voting against it? Because the people in this city, the people that are watching this, the people that this is going to affect, they realize we're in an economic downturn. Gas is $5 a gallon, and we give a lot of our city employees vehicles and gasoline and insurance and everything else that they can use. When food costs have gone up, when jobs are non-existent, while homes are being foreclosed, and when homeowners will be faced with more bond debt in order to pay these salaries. Now, you had been presented by Mr. Philpott with an opportunity to at least balance this off with a $10 million change in the fire department. And that was something you chose not to do. Two of the people on this dais were interested in it, 3 were not. So you could have had the $6.5 million by giving up the 10, and everybody would be happy. Thank you. I'm Barry Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Milano, I guess you're up.
Smoking prohibitions, very good.
That man has been taking.
I'm ready to start. Lights, yes, please. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Draymond, members of the City Council, and city staff. I have here a spreadsheet based on the budget information that I compiled since the year 2000 through 2008. And I have in front of you a chart that shows the salaries against the property tax, sales tax, and other taxes that the city of Glendale imposes on its residents and stakeholders. And as you can see, there has been a continual progressive increases in salary, steadily upward, that is not able to be fulfilled through any increases in property tax, sales tax, or other taxes. So that gap between the salaries in the dark column and the property sales tax and other taxes in the blue column represents a shortfall that has to be met through some other taxing means. And those other taxing means are primarily the utility users tax and the transfers that come from the Glendale Water and Power year after year. So it means that for every building that you build, for every additional commercial establishment that you build, no matter how many you've built in the last 8 years, all of that tax has gone primarily towards salaries. I want to move to the next one, which is the Glendale tax and revenue salary increases. And this is the year-over-year increases. Now let's see if I can show in here. Between the year 2000 and 2001, this was an economic downturn year. And as you can see, that irrespective of the economic downturn, you have a fairly hefty increase in salaries here anyway. And so did you as we were coming out of that downturn, and you still have a significant increase even though sales taxes were on a decrease. If you then follow to 2004, you see that very large increase in sales tax. That's primarily due to a change council made in 2004 to remove the 50-50 split of the sales tax, 50 to the general fund and 50 to the capital improvement fund, and made it 86-14. And that's the tremendous increase. And no matter how much you increased it, salaries went well above that incredible increase. If you look at the following year, when it basically dropped, we have the property tax increase. This is about the only year where it was with less than the quantities increases from property tax and sales tax. And then the following year, we began to have the increases in property taxes because of the sales of homes. And sure enough, there goes again a very high increase with regard to the salaries. So it really doesn't matter how much we build or how much commercial establishment we build, the increasing demand on the salaries and benefits is undaunting. And when I take a look at some of the benefits that are being provided, for example, if somebody happens to ride on a helicopter, they get a 5% extra pay. If they happen to be on the K-9 unit, that's a 5% extra pay. And I'd like to bring to you the following. I'm always asking for performance outcomes. So I did a California Records Act request on how many people were arrested or convicted as a use of a helicopter for last year. The answer is 0. How many were arrested or convicted as of the use of K-9 unit? The answer is 0. So we have all of these structures to give pay in umpteen different ways. Marksmanship, we give extra pay for marksmanship. Now, I happen to have won the top score in the Marine Corps as the highest expert of the whole battalion. I didn't get any extra pay because that was the role of the job that it entailed. It entailed for us to be able to use a weapon, with a certain amount of efficiency. No extra pay, but here you get individuals who are supposedly the only individuals who are allowed to use a gun, and they get extra pay for being able to qualify according to the different levels of marksmanship. This is what I'm talking about. All of these different complexities that you actually built into the MOU are basically being transferred right into those charts that demonstrate basically how out of control all of these pay structures are becoming. And unless you are able to see it comparatively, like I've shown you, it becomes very difficult to appreciate the impact that it's having on the residents of Glendale. Individuals who are no longer able to have a steady pension, individuals who are no longer able to afford a good quality health care, because they are the ones who are paying the increased fees that are being imposed on them through the Glendale Water and Power fees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. All right, that is the last of our speaker cards. Yes, Mr. Weaver.
Before I start on moving any of these ordinances, I would like the city attorney to explain our responsibilities because of state law and the courts of the state of California.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think where Mr. Weaver is going is the pronouncement by both state statute and by our California Supreme Court that a memorandum of understanding is a binding contract, and that any attempt to abrogate that by failing to adopt an ordinance to implement it would be unlawful. Probably the most recognizable case was the Glendale City Employees Association versus City of Glendale, where the California Supreme Court in 1975 held just that in the face of a situation where the city council was balking at implementing the terms and conditions of an MOU by not voting on the ordinance. And the Supreme Court found that the city council acted wrongfully by not voting on the ordinance and had to implement the contract, the terms and conditions of the contract. If you don't adopt the ordinance, the contract is still going to get implemented. Essentially, adopting the ordinance by state law now becomes almost ministerial. So a more recent case in 1994 where the Supreme Court once again did it again and reconfirmed that once you have an adopted MOU under the Myers-Millis-Brown Act, under state law, that becomes a binding contract for its duration. And essentially implementing ordinances that are necessary to carry out that contract is virtually ministerial.
Thank you. With that, I'll move 7A.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will give you a couple of reasons why I'm not going to vote for this ordinance. Not as simple as our city attorney states. There are opportunities for us to postpone voting on this and actually sitting down and discussing the issue with our unions. I have taken an opportunity to talk to at least 2 union leaders who are not opposed to discussing the issue. They're not stupid. They realize that the health and well-being of this organization as a whole is to the benefit of every single person who works for this city, and including people who live in this city. They are sensitive to that issue. Nevertheless, there's an issue of trust with some of those union leaders. One union in the past went out on a limb and took 1.5% off. And they were the only ones who did that. The former councils had said that they would look upon that union in future in good light because they were sensitive to the needs of the city. Later on, when all the problems were solved, the council reneged on their promises. So they have a very bitter taste in their mouth to an extent, because I don't think some of that council, they reneged on the promise. Now, the other thing that they also told me is they don't know, and they asked me point blank, how do we know you are truly in dire need? how do we know you're running out of money? How do we know that you don't have all these accounts hidden all over the place, and the minute we say, okay, we'll give you 2%, all of a sudden you bring all this money from all these different accounts? You know what? That's a concern that I also have. I've sat in here for 7 years. Been told many times there's no money, absolutely, you can't do anything. And when push comes to shove, staff says, let me go out there and I'll come back and let's see if there's a way we can do this. And lo and behold, every time, without a failure, they have gone back and they magically discover one account here, magically discover another position there that hadn't been, filled for several years. And next thing you know, you got the money to do what you need to do. So I can actually understand where they're coming from, because this is where the trust issue comes in. So my colleague, actually last week, made a challenge. He says, okay, how do you fix it? First, you have to establish the data that is accurate. And this is my pitch to my colleagues. I don't know if they take it or not, but I have pitched it to some of the unions, and they seem to agree on that. Which is, first, you have to trust the numbers are accurate. And the way we do this is the city every year or every other year goes out on an RFP for an external auditor. They have a list of 30 to 40 people that they look at, and they pick one. My suggestion is to make sure that there is accountability, and people can't say that we stack the deck or we try to just hire the consultant that we like so he can manipulate the data. I say we give the list to the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council. There are people in there that understand how budgets work. They have been in business in the past. They can go through the list that we had in the past RFPs and pick an external auditor. That external auditor will be responsible to the city council only, not to the city manager, not to the staff, not to anyone else. They will go, all the books will be open to that auditor. The auditor will go through, look at all the accounts, make sure all the numbers are accurate. If there's other accounts, he will find them. In the end, the results of those findings will be submitted to 3 groups: to city council, copy to the coordinating council, another copy to each one of those unions. So this way, all the unions know everything is up and up. Nobody's pulling anything fast. There is the accountability, the public accountability on that, and the council has gotten that, and the management cannot be blamed for pulling anything. After we find out what the real situation is in the city, then that auditor has to tell us, where are we going to be in 5 years from now if we continue with the trend that we're going? We have a stream of revenue that is not keeping up with the stream of expenses. It does not take a genius to figure this out. This package is more than $6.5 million. It is close to $8 million by the time you throw in all the overtime budget and all the other stuff. And on the first section that talks about the benefits, and it only says it is for basically health care. Not true. Not true at all. All you have to do is just go to page 2 of the MOU. You will see 6.5% per month above the base salary, extra compensation for a helicopter pilot. Another 10% above the base salary for a helicopter trainee. Another 5% per month above their base salary. This is for extra compensation for the helicopter observer. Just goes on. The ordinance is peppered with this type of stuff. Some of them as high as 10%, some of them as high as 20 hours per month for someone to basically feed the K-9. And I remember when they instituted the K-9, we all gave money toward the K-9, including Mr. Najarian's nephews who brought the piggy bank and broke it. So these are some of the issues. So $8 million this year. We had to cut 9.9, almost $10 million to be able to make room for this one. So we dodged a bullet maybe today. Maybe, I say, because you only have a $40,000 room for any kind of a breeding room. Next year, this numbers become your base. Now, you have the same MOUs, and the same implementation will be 5% on what you already did, which means those numbers will be about $10 million. Now, Americana gives you at the most $3 million. How many Americanas do I have to build to be able to do this? Or how much more I can transfer money from all this so-called interfunds, because that's where it's coming. Most of the money comes from there. We do not make that much money between all the sales tax and what we get from property tax, despite what people think their property tax doesn't really pay for the services. So we have been transferring, and we've been transferring a lot from GWP. And I will tell you, from the time I came to this office in 2001, we transferred $13,946,892. That was the transfer then. That's when I came in. That's water and power combined. Today, forecast $23,267,000. $10 million more. So there is so much you can transfer at one point. It may not be next year, it may not be the year after, but I will guarantee you within the next 5 years, the graph that we will see there will be going down because there is not enough revenues. We talk about revenue enhancement. We did. We talked about it in the past. You know what all the business tax adds? $4 million. We did the study sessions. We didn't go there, but that's $4 million. How do you close a $10 million gap and the following year will be more and more and more? What tells me is we have the same problem as the state and many other cities do, which is there's a systemic problem in our way of budgeting. We're better than the state, but you know what? We still have a systemic problem. So for me to go ahead and approve this today, just because I think, the Supreme Court ruled this way, Supreme Court ruled that way, Supreme Courts can rule all day long. They're not the ones who write the checks. End of the day, council will have to make good on those checks. They may be good on these checks today, next year, the following year, and then you know what? The gravy train, it will stop at one point, and people start losing their jobs. Now, if you talk to the rank and file, which I took some opportunity talking to, they had a choice between having their friends lose their jobs or coming on a table and negotiating with council on good faith. They will pick the latter. But everything depends on that one issue. Good faith, good numbers that everybody trusts. So that's what I have done. I was given a challenge, and I think I have tried to meet it. I think we have an opportunity and an obligation to the unions and also to all the citizenry of Glendale to go back and discuss this issue. I know it's very difficult. I hate to say no. I really do, because I think our workers in this city do a yeoman's job. But the bottom line is I also have to look and see whether or not we can do this in a sustainable way in the future. And frankly, based on my experience, based on the data I have seen, we can't. So that's why I put on the table, and I hope my colleagues will kind of kick it around a little bit. Let's talk about it and see if I'm all wet, or would they like to kind of go there? And we have the union president from the police officers here. I do not see from the firefighters in here. But maybe we can talk to them and see if that's something they're interested in going, or they absolutely don't care about it and they say just approve it. I don't know.
Okay. Excuse me, we have a motion, I believe, Mr. City Clerk, we have a motion on 7A.
Yes, there is. Councilmember Weaver.
First of all, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other comment on 7A? Okay. I hear none. Mr. City Clerk.
Councilmembers Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Yusefian,
No.
Mayor Drayman.
Yes.
Mayor moves 7B.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comment? All right, Mr. City Clerk, let's call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Yusefian,
No.
Mayor Drayman.
Yes.
So Mayor moves 7C.
Do we have a second on
Second.
Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmembers Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Yusefian,
No.
Mayor Drayman.
Yes.
So Mayor moves 7D.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any comment? No comment. Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmembers Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Yusefian,
No.
Mayor Drayman.
Yes.
Mayor moves 7E.
Second.
Second. Mr. Quintero?
As I have done for many years, I'm going to vote against 7E because it's my opinion that we don't go about, let's see, how should I put this? We don't use the right procedures in terms of allocating raises or cost of living measures for the executives of the city. I'd like to see us use a different procedure, so I'll vote against it.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Quintero, this does not involve salaries. This is just
This is benefits.
This is just the benefits component.
Well, whatever.
Just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Health insurance.
Is there any other comment? Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Councilmembers Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
No.
Weaver,
Aye.
Yusefian,
No.
Mayor Drayman.
Yes.
This ordinance fails as an urgency measure.
So does
This ordinance was established as an urgency measure if so the prevailing side was essentially the three votes that, well, actually the prevailing side were essentially the two votes. Actually, the three votes lost it, so the prevailing side is the three votes. There could be a motion to reconsider if the council were to desire to do so.
Otherwise-
Strike Section 14 of the ordinance, which is an urgency measure, and change Section 15 on the effective date, and the ratification for any benefits or compensation that are paid between June 1 and July 17th.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to reconsider.
Do we have a second?
Okay.
Mr. Howard, may I?
Please, Mr. Najarian.
Howard, what's the practical effect of entering into a memorandum of understanding? The Supreme Court, they don't write the checks, but make the laws, don't they? in
That's
this
correct.
state?
They do. But this ordinance is not subject of an MOU. This is for executives. The next one is for council. Neither of those are subject to MOUs or any binding.
And what would
agreements.
be the effect then of E?
Yeah, we're at E.
E.
We're at E,
7E.
but it says under certain memorandum of.
Yeah, and that language is, I'll say it's incorrect. There is no memorandum of understanding for executives. I think the intent is, if you look at the urgency clause and the other provisions of the ordinance, is to make sure you retain parity with the other association members and you pass through the insurance benefits consistent with the other MOU.
So having it not pass as an urgency ordinance adds how much time to the implementation?
The effective date of the urgency ordinance is today. The effective date of a non-urgency ordinance would be 30 days from today, but you could also ratify any of the payments that might be made between June 1st and the effective date, July 17th.
How do we do that in the motion?
I've got language in the ordinance to do so. I can read it.
Okay, so it's been reconsidered, so we take a
Well,
vote on that
you still have to
first?
reconsider.
We've only had a motion to reconsider.
Right.
and a
You have
second.
not, you've
So
not
there would have to
adopted
be
that
a-
motion yet.
A vote to reconsider. All right. Do we have discussion on the matter of reconsideration of that?
Since we're not going to get four.
You don't need
Three to
Only need
reconsider.
three to
Three.
You only need three to
I know,
reconsider.
but knowing we're not going to get pulled for the urgency, what choice?
Right. If there's no other discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Yusefian.
This ordinance, I guess on the employees' benefit, I mean, this is for the executives.
Correct.
As I read the MOU, most of the stuff that's in the executives, it deals with the Blue Cross, California Care, Cigna, and Kaiser. There is no other stuff in there.
That's essentially
I
what the
understand that.
executives have, is a standard adjustment on what the city
Right.
and the employee picks up on health care.
There is
That
not,
paying for
there's
sure.
not much money.
There's no extra pays.
There's
or
no
nothing
extra
in there.
pays or anything.
There's nothing else in there. So I will vote for that, just to do that. I don't have problems with that type of a stuff. I mean, that's healthcare. I have no problem with that. It's just
Currently, what
other
we
ones.
have,
We could go back to the urgency.
currently, what we have is a motion to reconsider and a second.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Well,
So, we can withdraw the motion, correct?
Well, no, at this point in time, you have a 3-2
Yes, we-
vote on an urgency measure. You have a council member indicating they possibly may change their vote. You should go through the reconsideration, bring us back to where we were.
All right, let's do that.
At
Mr.
70, and then you can have further discussion to decide if
Is
you
there
want
any
to
other
keep it as an
discussion
urgency
on
measure or
the
not.
motion to reconsider? No.
Motion was made by Councilmember Najarian, seconded by Councilmember Weaver.
Mr.
Roll call.
City Clerk, yes.
Councilmember Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
No.
Weaver.
Aye.
Yusefian.
Aye.
Mayor Draymond.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Mayor, I'll move 7E again.
Second.
Mr. City Clerk.
Councilmembers Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
No.
Weaver.
Aye.
Yusefian.
Aye.
Mayor Draymond.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move 7F.
Okay. I have a motion on 7F. Do we have a second?
And is this,
That's for city council.
this is not a memorandum of
No,
understanding?
no
on this or
MOU with
anything?
the city council, and this is similar to the previous ordinance that you adopted. This is to pass through the benefits.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. City Clerk, if you would, please.
Councilmembers Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Yusefian.
No.
Mayor Draymond.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, move 7G.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Let's call the roll.
Councilmembers Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Yusefian.
No.
Mayor Draymond.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, move 7G.
Second.
7H.
7H.
7H, I'm sorry.
Second.
Losing track.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? No. Mr. City Clerk.
Councilmembers Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Yusefian.
No.
Mayor Draymond.
Yes.
Mayor, move 7I.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? No. Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmembers Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Yusefian.
No.
Mayor Draymond.
Yes.
Mayor, move 7J.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmembers Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Yusefian.
No.
Mayor Draymond.
Yes. Okay. Mr. City Clerk, let us please go to, well, let's go to oral communications. The individual, Talin Kachaturian, is back, I understand. So if you'd like to come up and make your announcement.
And as she's coming up, for anyone watching at home who has looked at the agenda online, the item at 8A, action items, Director of Community Services Development and Housing regarding smoking regulations, to be discussed at the special joint meeting that was already heard during the special meeting that we recessed to.
Thank you, Mr. City Clerk, for that housekeeping. I'm sure it is helpful to the people looking in. Ms. Kachaturian.
Thank you so much for your time. I know it's been a long evening, but I did want to, again, as I have in years past, come by to welcome all of you and to invite you to this year's Armenian Bone Marrow Donor Registry Walk of Life. And this year, we're just as always been very honored to be partnered by Glendale Memorial Hospital. And they were here with us today. Unfortunately, they had to go back to the planning meeting for Saturday's event. The walkathon will be this Saturday, June 21st. At 7:30 will be registration, and 8:30 will be the walkathon itself. And again, we invite all of you to join us. We have your T-shirts ready and waiting. They will be delivered to your offices this week so that you can come on Saturday prepared. The walk itself will be at Griffith Park, and it'll be directly across from the ranger station, closest to the carousel and to the Chains Inspiration, which many people are very well aware of. And I wanted to let you know that I have chaired the walkathon last year, and this year I passed the baton to an extremely passionate, young group of individuals that I'm very proud of, and they're led by Dr. Evelyn Bagdasarian, who worked for a number of years with Children's Hospital and has seen firsthand as a pediatrician what it's like for children who are suffering from leukemia and other blood-related diseases, and what it's like to sit around and wait for a bone marrow transplant to find a match. And we're proud to say that at this point we have actually accumulated a group of 14,000 potential donors, and out of the 850 patients that are waiting for bone marrow matches, we've been able to find matches, prospective matches, for 350 of them. We still have quite a bit of work ahead of us, and so we're looking forward to the event this weekend to help promote that and also to move forward. We're hoping to raise awareness, to teach people and the community that they need to work quickly to help find a match, because it is difficult among certain ethnicities to find a proper match to be able to have a successful transplant. We are hoping that this event will also support all of our patients and their parents, both of those who are still with us as well as those patients that we have unfortunately lost over the past couple of years out of the need of not being able to find their match, and to raise the funds that we need in order to be able to test and create and perpetuate this registry for them. We encourage donors to join the registry. As always, they will be able to come to the walk itself and be able to be tested and to join the registry. We encourage those who feel strongly that they would want to go through the entire process and be there to save a life to definitely join the registry. There are a number of ways for the community to get involved, and I'm hoping that all of you will be able to take some time out on Saturday morning to join us so that we can definitely have the support of the Glendale City Council, as we always have in the past. We look forward to it. We've had a number of organizations coming from Glendale, as well as the Armenian clubs from the high schools, the elementary schools, and a number of business owners from Glendale join us as well. So I look forward to seeing you, and you'll surely see the T-shirts showing up at your offices in the next few days.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions or comments from the council? No?
Well, just to say, it's been such a pleasure watching the organization grow throughout the years, become more and more efficient, more and more well-known. I had the chance to visit the clinic in Yerevan when I was there, and it was just unbelievable. I mean, it just literally made the whole street shine. It was so nice and clean and modern. And anyway, just good luck. I'm sure you'll have a nice turnout.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that the registration fee this week is $20 and $25 the day of the event, and anyone can pre-register on our website, which is www.abmdr.am.
You know, that's a very big park. Maybe you should tell the people exactly where it's going to be.
It's going to be at the Griffith Park, and it'll be directly across from the ranger station. Registration on site will be 7:30 in the morning, and the walk itself at 8:30. However, as I said, they can definitely register in advance on the website.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Okay, that concludes our announcements. Let's go now to our normal oral communications. Barry Allen is our first speaker, followed by Rita Unikian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, and of course the public. I'm Barry Allen with Vanguardians. I was looking at a few things the other day. In fact, actually somebody handed me this, and I thought it would be very apropos. It's the City of Glendale aggressive solicitation ordinances, and section 9.18.030A is aggressive solicitations are prohibited. It is unlawful for any person to solicit, ask, or beg in an aggressive manner in any public place. And I think maybe we can use that as we draft the ordinance for council solicitations. One of the other things that I was thinking about today as we watched the majority of the people, 24, 25 people that spoke against or spoke in favor of an ordinance prohibiting smoking, and only one didn't. And I know one of our council members very frequently says, obviously the people who didn't show up needed to be counted. We did hear him mention a few emails that he got that were there, but the fact is, so many people have called me and said, I really don't want to go to a council meeting. I'm afraid to. What are you afraid of? Well, being treated in an aggressive manner, being treated not politely, being sort of whipsawed. And, the five of you sit there, and you look at people, you interact with them. They see what your expressions are, and they don't want to come here. And occasionally we'll get a smile out of Mr. Yusefian, and sometimes Mr. Draymond, when he makes a funny remark, we'll hear a little bit of laughter, but somehow or other, instead of encouraging people to come forth and to fill this chamber and to give you impact or feedback and to speak to issues, you're giving them a bad break. They're afraid. Now, I would like to see that the council changes that and that they have a friendlier attitude, that people don't have to worry about saying the wrong thing and having the policeman drag them off. It's something that we have to work on. I know I've been trying with the people that call me, and I encourage them to come here, and if they're really afraid, to sit with me, and we'll talk, and we'll make them feel comfortable. But it's the demeanor that they see, they hear, and they feel that comes from this dais. We really need your help in order to maintain the engagement and involvement of the community. And with that, of course, we have our little sign here so that people know how to get in touch with Vanguardians. Did it come out? Does it work, Jan?
Looks like it's working.
Okay, it's doing its job. Well, it's better than asking the city clerk to put on a DVD on a PowerPoint, but it takes a lot less time. Anyways, I certainly thank you, and know that you're going to do your darndest to engage the public and encourage them to come to this council with good thoughts in mind, and that they know that you're not going to strike back and lash out at them. Thank you. I'm Barry Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Rita Unikian, followed by Herbert Milano.
Hi, how are you?
Fine.
My name is Rita Unikian. I have lived in Glendale since 1989. First of all, I am single parent and have volunteered at the Glendale schools for 12 years. The reason of my concern is to ask the councillor. The reason of my concern is to ask the city councillor members to ask the looking into rent control, especially for all low-income residents in Glendale who are struggling to make a living. I have handout that I intend to distribute to Glendale residents to sign and support my cause. Please, my councillor members. I know last time you bring a paper for the Mr. Scott. Last time you bring it for rent control for the attorney for the code for 9,200, and I'm little bit hard for me. I find a good attorney for this petition, and already every city I know it for their every bar association in every city. Actually, I'm called for the Santa Monica, and then somebody has told me every city is the separate for the bar association. I know it for Glendale is the bar association because it's helped me for the Santa Monica, but it's told me you have your city and city is help you, and then I'm find it for that number, but it's nobody is the Mr. Dryman. Nobody has helped me. Why? Because resident is the tried for rent control, and nobody. When I'm said for the rent control, it said, lady, I'm not. I don't have a somebody refer for attorney. Then I'm called for the Glendale Press News. Then somebody I'm waited call me. Then I think so is help me for that bar association is help me for the find it refer for attorney for rent control. But little bit hard. Please help it for resident in Glendale. I know the best people is here. Already I'm 2 months I'm here. I'm see it. You very help it everybody. I'm very jealous. Why is for Armenian resident? Actually everybody, but Armenian resident in lot of people in here, and half is people is low income and SSI. I like it. You double check and think that maybe you have a help it for resident, because I know you when it said lot of people is the void that signature and then an attorney and find it, but I'm not find it. But why is the Glendale Bar Association is not help for resident for rent control? I know it for every separate area city is the help it for city and resident, but I don't know why is Glendale is a little bit hard and not help it for resident. Can you told me why, please? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Herbert Milano, followed by Margaret Hammond.
Good evening. My name is Herbert Milano, Mayor Draymond, members of the City Council. You know, when I took a look at the priorities that the city has with regard to its overall budget, especially during the experience that I've had during the past few years in actually taking the full copy of the city's budget, taking it home with me and studying it, and then seeing slowly, year after year, linking all of the decisions that council makes, looking at Form 460, and slowly but surely I began to form a position or an understanding of how it is that things work or don't work. You know, in all of these countries that have problems that are of significance, there's always one undercurrent trend in all of them, and it is unfairness, that a certain segment of the population feels that whoever is in power is not addressing their concerns. And you see it. You see it in all the countries that have major disparities. You know, I look at the city's budget, and I look at your priorities, and now I understand why it is that we don't have an aquatic facility. I look at the individuals who earn over $100,000 in the city of Glendale and ask myself, how many of these people live in southern Glendale? How many get up in the morning and see their neighborhoods and see the state in which we are? On California Street, I have crumbling curbs. Crumbling. You go there between Maryland Avenue and, let's say, in Louise, you see the streets are crumbling. Pieces of it that you can actually grab and pull out. And it hasn't gotten fixed, even though I sent emails and documentation. There is no money for that. There is no money for an aquatic facility for kids, even though it is so incredibly essential and effective for us to have programs for kids in after school. We wait for the federal government to give us the money, because coming in from the taxpayers of Glendale, that money doesn't go there. You know, I always wondered, well, what if they don't live in southern Glendale? Do they live at all in Glendale? And I wonder if there is any link, if there is any empathy for someone to say, wait a second, I work in the city of Glendale, I live in Santa Clarita, you know, my kids have it, they got the water parks, they have the facilities, they have the good surroundings. But in the meantime, the very same individuals are earning 3 times, 4 times, 5 times more than the average household income, total household income. How is that possible? Well, now I understand why the problems that we have that continue to go decade after decade don't get resolved. You know, kids don't vote. A lot of these residents in San Glendale either are not citizens or generally are not voting. But this is where the needs are, and I think that as you've seen today, it has been tens of millions of dollars available. They're available not for those needs, but for the needs of primarily of those individuals who are there on Form 460, who are trying to persuade you through the campaign contributions. And I think that's wrong. Why do we have a significant budget shortfall in the state of California? Because we're not addressing the situation with preventing kids from getting into prison. And it's much more effective. And that prison budget is basically hurting everything. It's hurting the schools, it's hurting all of society. And you are in a position, this is what is so amazing to me, that you are in a position to do something about it. To be of significance, to start changing the trend. And, we may not be able to fix the problems in Pasadena or Burbank or LA, but we can make headway towards at least setting up a model city of how a city could really work in ensuring that kids graduate, providing the after-school programs, providing the aquatic facilities, or even the facilities for them to play in. On my building in Kenwood, there are about 8 or 9 kids who play in the subterranean parking, and they do fictitious basketball right up against the wall. There is no place walking from this area where they can actually walk to a public facility where there's a basketball court, for example. There isn't, not unless they open R.D. White. Those are the disparities: street maintenance, curb maintenance, sidewalk maintenance, lack of facilities for youth. I wonder if these individuals who are earning over $100,000 have any empathy at all when they come in and ask for these amazing salaries and benefits. They're not benefiting us. And that's what concerns me, because I think that we can do something about it, or at least begin to change the conversation we're carrying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. Margaret Hammond.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, to the City Council and staff and audience. My name is Margaret Hammond. I'm a citizen of Glendale, 50 years. Okay, as a member of Councilman Najarian's so-called flock of vultures, alias concerned citizens of Glendale, should I be flapping my wings to get your attention? Well, anyway, I guess I'll just go ahead and croak out my concerns from my city that I want to share with my city councilman. My main concern, one of my main concerns, is for us to keep the police resource officers in the middle schools. I've spoke to several people in the interim since last week. And I know there's a problem with balancing the budget. But after speaking to officers who have served at the schools and teachers who have taught in the schools, I feel it is vital that the officers be assigned to those duties at those middle schools for the security and peace of mind of the students and the teachers. And, keep the welfare of our children. They're our important thing. No matter what else comes up, all the other junk that you go through and vote on and whatnot, the children are the important thing. And I've heard many people say that that's a bad age. And as a matter of fact, the one officer I spoke to said in the first week that she worked at the school, she had a box of knives. And it was at Wilson. So, this isn't just hearsay, this is fact. But they can't come up and speak. Number one, the fact that, again, as Mr. Milano says, people aren't going to come here. Mayor Draymond, I feel that you seem to have been successfully achieved your apparent goal of doing away with the pesky citizens who used to come and voice their concerns. Looking around, what have we got? You did away with them. There used to be, sure, maybe 15, 20 of them. Not anymore. For a lot of them, they can't stay up this late, and I know even at home, the people that I speak to say it's really unhappy that this has happened because they go to bed. And they're interested in hearing what citizens want to bring to you about various concerns and problems. And if you don't want to hear them and do away with them in your own way, then that's fine. But I think you better remember the next time there's elections. You know, maybe a different story. If we were promised one thing, the last round of elections, and we didn't get it, we're not going to forget. So thank you very much for your attention. And again, I know it's hard with the budgeting, but it is important for those officers to be at the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hammond. All right, comments from, that was the last speaker card. Comments from the city council, or answers or questions? No.
Just briefly.
Mr. Najarian.
Just with regard, talk about some concrete issues if we can. The curbs that Mr. Milano referenced, I did receive an email from him. I did forward that email with some comments to Mr. Zern regarding that location, and your response was?
It's in the works.
My response, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Najarian, was we will look into it. We'll see where that street lies in our overall pavement management system plan, and I would get back to you with a estimated time when we might be in that neighborhood. In the meantime, I did send my maintenance crews out to take a look and see if there was any interim measures we could take, what I would call a patch, but it's a lot more than that, to try to take care of some of the areas that may be the most in need.
There's there a priority list that we have?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So despite our fondness for Mr. Milano and his praise of the council, we can't boost him up higher on the list than anyone else that had been there before.
Generally, we don't do that because when we go through each of our pavement management evaluations, curb gutter, and we generally tie, as I'm sure you gentlemen know, we generally tie the curb and gutter into the pavement restoration. That's all an integral part. If I'm not mistaken, the street that the speaker mentioned is an older street that doesn't have the integral curb and gutter, so a lot of times we'll have to tear everything out and start over again. So we evaluate the streets based on the total need for the pavement and the curb and gutter. In the meantime, I'll have my maintenance folks take a look and see if there's anything we can do in the interim. At this time, I don't know where that street lies on our schedule, but when I find that out, I'll pass that along to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments? No. All right. We have some business, new business. All right. Yes, Mr. Quintero.
I move that the city manager is hereby authorized to submit to the County of Los Angeles a request to remove tax defaulted property which has been noticed for sale in the city of Glendale, including the payment of a fee therefor. The property is more particularly described as Assessor's Parcel Number 5607-022-002. Further, should it be required by the county or the property not be redeemed by the owner or owners, the city manager is authorized to execute any and all documents necessary in preparation of securing title to the property in the name of the city of Glendale.
Second.
Mr. City Clerk.
Council members Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver. Yusefian.
Aye.
Mayor Drammond.
Yes. We have further new business. Mr. Najarian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the claim for damages of Hartford Insurance as subrogee of Glendale College of Law for property damages be and hereby is approved for the total sum of $33,000. The interim director of Administrative Services Finance is authorized to issue a warrant in said sum for delivery by the city attorney upon the receipt of a properly executed release.
Second.
Mr. City Clerk.
Council members Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Yusefian.
Aye.
Mayor Drammond.
Yes. Mr. Weaver.
Yes, I move that the city attorney be and hereby is authorized to enter into a retainer agreement to utilize the legal services of Bonin, Frank, and Richard Terzian, to assist the city attorney with an investigation of a personnel matter and to incur all necessary expenses in connection therewith. The agreement shall, in addition to other provisions, contain a fee cap for the handling of said investigation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Mr. City Clerk.
Council members Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Yusefi.
Aye.
Mayor Draymond.
Yes. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Mayor,
In honor of,
we would like
in memory of
Lucy.
Lucy Yarrick.
Yarrick.
That motion was made by Councilmember Yusefi and seconded by
Mr. Weaver.
Lucy
Very
Yarrick.
good.